check your quarters before you spend them. The 2022 Maya Angelou quarter is making history, and some rare errors are selling for hundreds of dollars. Don't forget the 1967 and 1996 Washington quarters. Missing mint marks or double dies can mean serious value. You might be holding a modern treasure in your pocket change. In 2022, the United States Mint made history with the release of the Maya Angelou quarter, a coin that was more than just currency. It was a celebration of art, culture, and legacy. For the first time ever, an African-American woman was featured on the U.S. quarter, marking a profound moment in the nation's coinage history. Millions of these quarters entered circulation, carrying with them the poetic power of Maya Angelou's spirit and story. Yet, among those millions, a small number came out differently, minted with errors so rare that they have turned into treasures worth far beyond their face value. Some of these special 2022 Maya Angelou error quarters have been valued anywhere from $48,000 to $134,000, depending on their rarity, condition, and type of minting mistake. The Maya Angelou quarter was the first release in the American Women Quarters program, a series that honors influential women who helped shape U.S. history. The coin features the familiar portrait of George Washington on the obverse, redesigned by Laura Garden Fraser, one of America's most respected sculptors, whose original design had been submitted back in 1931 but was never used until now. The reverse side of the coin, designed by Emily Damstra, beautifully portrays Maya Angelou with her arms uplifted, symbolizing freedom and creative inspiration, with a bird soaring above her and rays of sunlight radiating in the background. The design captures Angelou's powerful connection to hope and self-expression, a true reflection of her poetry, her voice, and her enduring influence on American culture. But even in the age of advanced minting technology, perfection remains elusive. The 2022 Maya Angelou quarters, produced in the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints, saw a few extraordinary mistakes slip through. These errors, though unintentional, have become some of the most sought-after discoveries among coin collectors and enthusiasts. The most famous of these errors involve die breaks, misstrikes, double dies, and off-center impressions. To the untrained eye, they might look like imperfections, but in the world of numismatics, these are golden opportunities. One of the most striking errors found in some 2022 Maya Angelou quarters is the die chip or die break. This happens when a small piece of the die, the tool that stamps the coin's design, breaks off during production, leaving a raised blob of metal on the finished coin. On some examples of the Angelou quarter, these die chips appear near the edges of her arms or within the wings of the bird, giving the coin a distinct, almost artistic anomaly. Collectors love these small imperfections because no two are exactly alike. Each coin with a die break carries a slightly different shape and position of the flaw, making every one of them truly unique. Another fascinating type of error that appeared in some of these quarters is the double die. This error occurs when the die itself receives two impressions that are not perfectly aligned. The result is that certain parts of the design appear doubled, especially the lettering around the rim, such as United States of America, Liberty, or even In God We Trust. Under magnification, the doubled lines become visible, giving the coin a ghostly effect that collectors find mesmerizing. A well-defined double die on a 2022 Maya Angelou quarter can easily fetch thousands of dollars, with pristine mint state examples climbing into that higher range of $48,000 to $134,000 when authenticated and graded by professional certification services like PCGS or NGC. Then there are off-center strikes, another category of error that captures attention instantly. These happen when the blank planchet isn't perfectly centered between the dies during the striking process. The result is a coin with part of the design missing or shifted dramatically to one side, often leaving a crescent of smooth, blank metal. The degree of misalignment determines the rarity. The more off-center the design, the more valuable the coin becomes. An off-center Maya Angelou quarter with a clear date and visible design elements can easily rank among the top collectible errors of the series. Some error coins even show signs of partial collar strikes or broad strikes, where the metal expands beyond its intended borders, giving the coin a slightly larger or irregular shape. Others exhibit unusual toning or misaligned dies that distort parts of the artwork. These visual oddities make the coin fascinating to look at, but they also make it incredibly rare. And rarity, in the world of coin collecting, is the ultimate key to value. Beyond their errors, these coins hold deep emotional and cultural meaning. Maya Angelou herself was a poet, author, and civil rights activist who used words as her weapon and compassion as her message. Her appearance on the quarter wasn't just an artistic choice. It was a symbolic acknowledgement of her role in shaping the American conscience. To collectors, finding an error on such a historically significant coin makes the discovery even more powerful. It's as if the imperfection mirrors the human journey she so eloquently wrote about. A reminder that even beauty can arise from flaws. Stories have circulated of people finding these error coins in pocket change, cash registers, or bank rolls. Imagine the surprise of someone pulling out what looks like an ordinary quarter, only to notice something odd. A slight doubling, a raised bump, or a design shift. That tiny detail, overlooked by most, could turn out to be a rare error worth tens of thousands of dollars. These stories have fueled the excitement around the 2022 Maya Angelou quarters, prompting more and more people to check their change carefully, hoping to uncover a hidden treasure. The collector's market has responded enthusiastically to these discoveries. Dealers and auction houses have seen strong demand for verified error examples, especially those certified in high grades. Coins graded MS67 or MS68, meaning near-perfect condition, can reach astonishing values. In one case, an error coin from the Maya Angelou series, featuring an extensive die break across the reverse, sold for over $50,000. Another double die example in pristine condition was valued at more than $90,000, and experts believe that the rarest varieties could command up to $134,000 as awareness grows and supply remains extremely limited. The appeal of these coins goes beyond monetary value. For many collectors, they represent a fusion of history, symbolism, and accident. The fact that such a meaningful coin could also be one of the most valuable modern quarters ever released adds an extra layer of intrigue. It's a story of how art, technology, and human error converge to create something extraordinary. Each coin tells its own story, the story of the mint worker who set up the machine, the mechanical process that went slightly off track, and the moment a small imperfection transformed an everyday object into a historical artifact. These quarters remind us that perfection is not always the most beautiful thing. Sometimes, it's the flaws that make something truly special. The Maya Angelou quarter captures that idea perfectly, both in its design and in its errors. Collectors often emphasize the importance of checking the fine details. A magnifying glass or a coin loop can reveal doubling in the text, extra metal on the rim, or subtle misalignment in the strike. Even something as small as a tiny die chip can make a difference. For the casual observer, it's just a coin. For a trained eye, it's a potential fortune. Many of these error quarters are still out there, undiscovered, sitting in jars of change or circulation. That's what keeps the thrill alive, the possibility that the next great find is just waiting to be recognized. The story of the 2022 Maya Angelou quarter is a reminder of how far the United States Mint has come, and how, even in an age of advanced technology, the unexpected still happens. Each coin minted is meant to be identical, but sometimes, a small deviation makes one stand apart. And those rare few become legends. With values reaching as high as $134,000, the 2022 error quarters have already earned their place among the most talked about modern U.S. coins. In the world of American coin collecting, few stories capture the imagination quite like that of the 1967 Washington quarter. At first glance, it looks like any other quarter that might slip through your hands while buying a cup of coffee or paying for parking. But for those who understand the language of mint marks, die errors, and rare imperfections, the 1967 Washington quarter holds a mystery, a history, and a potential fortune that has collectors and treasure hunters alike searching tirelessly through their change. What makes this particular year so special is the combination of historical transition, minting experiments, and unexpected minting errors that turned ordinary coins into legendary collector's items. Some of these coins, thanks to their extremely rare errors, have sold for incredible sums, with the most valuable examples bringing anywhere from $58,000 to $145,000, depending on the type of error and condition. That's right, a single 25-cent piece could be worth more than a luxury car or even a small house. To understand why the 1967 Washington quarter is such a fascinating piece, we have to step back in time. The United States Mint had recently undergone one of the most significant changes in modern coinage. Just 2 years earlier, in 1965, the country stopped minting silver quarters and switched to a new composition of copper-nickel clad metal due to the rising cost of silver. This shift brought its own challenges. The mint was experimenting with new materials, new dyes, and updated striking methods. On top of that, 1967 was part of a unique 3-year period, 1965 to 1967, when the mint did not include mint marks on coins. This was an intentional decision by the government to discourage coin hoarding, as people had been stashing away silver coins and even new issues for speculation. Without mint marks, it became harder to tell where a coin came from, but it also created confusion and, in some cases, led to quality control oversights that resulted in remarkable minting errors. One of the most sought-after errors from the 1967 Washington quarter is the double die error. This happens when the coin's design is struck more than once, but slightly out of alignment. The result is a doubled image, most easily spotted on the words, "In God We Trust, Liberty," or on the date, 1967. The effect can vary from subtle to extremely pronounced, with some examples showing clear doubling visible even without magnification. These double die quarters are among the most desirable of the 1967 series because they represent both a clear visual anomaly and a piece of minting history. Collectors love errors that you can easily spot with the naked eye, and a strong double die falls perfectly into that category. Depending on how clear the doubling is and the coin's condition, these can sell for tens of thousands of dollars, and pristine examples, certified by top grading companies, have been known to fetch prices up to $145,000 at major auctions. Another fascinating error found in the 1967 quarters is the off-center strike. This type of mistake occurs when the blank planchet, the metal disc that becomes the coin, isn't perfectly aligned when it's struck by the dies. Instead of a centered image, part of the design ends up shifted toward one edge, and a portion of the coin is left blank. The degree of misalignment determines the rarity. The more dramatic the off-center strike, the higher the value, especially if the date remains visible. Collectors particularly prize errors where 30% or more of the design is missing but the year 1967 is still clearly readable. These visually striking coins can easily bring 4- and 5-figure sums, and examples in superb condition have been known to sell for over $60,000. There's also the clipped planchet error, which occurs when the metal sheet from which the blanks are cut overlaps or shifts during the punching process, resulting in coins that have a crescent-shaped missing section. The effect looks almost like someone took a small bite out of the coin. These clipped quarters from 1967 are rare and collectible because they're tangible evidence of the minting process gone wrong. A mistake that slipped through quality control during a hectic production period. Depending on the size of the clip and whether the rest of the coin's details are well preserved, some of these can sell for thousands, and high-grade examples combined with other errors can command exceptional prices. Perhaps one of the most intriguing varieties from 1967 is the transitional error. Because the mint was still adjusting to the new copper-nickel composition introduced in 1965, there are rumors and reports of a few quarters being struck on leftover silver planchets. While official records claim all silver was phased out by 1964, a small number of experimental or leftover planchets may have accidentally made their way into the presses during the following years. These transitional 1967 quarters, if they exist and are confirmed, would be among the most valuable modern rarities. Tests have shown that certain examples have a slightly different weight than regular copper-nickel-clad coins, suggesting they may have been struck on silver or experimental planchets. Should such a coin be authenticated, it could easily sell for more than $100,000, potentially setting new auction records for the year. Then there are the die cracks and cuds, small but fascinating indicators of minting stress and wear. Over time, as the metal dies used to strike coins deteriorate, they can develop fractures. When these cracks transfer onto the coins, they appear as raised lines or bumps on the surface. In some 1967 quarters, these die cracks form along Washington's profile through the word Liberty, or around the date. In more extreme cases, a portion of the die may even break off completely, creating a cud, an area of extra metal where part of the design is missing. Collectors are drawn to these errors because they're unique fingerprints of the minting process. No two die cracks are exactly alike, which gives each piece an individuality that standard coins lack. Another fascinating phenomenon found in some 1967 Washington quarters is strike-through errors. This occurs when a foreign object, such as a piece of cloth, metal shaving, or grease, gets between the die and the planchet during the striking process. The object leaves an impression on the coin, resulting in unusual textures or missing details. These errors are less common but add intrigue to a collection, especially when the cause of the strike-through is identifiable. A quarter with a clear strike-through error can attract strong bidding interest, sometimes pushing values well above $58,000 for exceptional pieces. What makes the 1967 Washington quarter particularly interesting to collectors is not just the range of possible errors but the era in which it was produced. The mid-1960s were a turbulent time for the U.S. Mint. The elimination of silver, the removal of mint marks, and the unprecedented coin shortage all contributed to an environment ripe for mistakes. Production volumes were massive, quality control was strained, and new equipment was being tested. All these factors combined to create the perfect storm for minting anomalies. Anomalies that, decades later, would become the crown jewels of numismatic collections. Many collectors today check their old change or inherited coin jars hoping to find one of these 1967 rarities. The thrill of spotting a doubled date, a missing edge, or a silver-toned planchet is irresistible. And with verified sales reaching $58,000 to $145,000, the motivation to search is stronger than ever. Even circulated examples with visible errors can be worth hundreds or thousands, and uncirculated, certified coins can sell for life-changing amounts. Auction houses such as Heritage Auctions and Stack's Bowers have featured multiple 1967 era quarters in recent years, and each time the results are stunning. The bidding wars that erupt over these pieces show just how much excitement they still generate among serious collectors. But beyond the money, the 1967 Washington quarter tells a deeper story, one of transition, experimentation, and human imperfection. It's a reminder that even in highly controlled industrial processes, small deviations can create something extraordinary. Each error coin is like a fingerprint from history, a frozen moment in the mint's production line that somehow escaped correction and entered circulation, carrying with it a silent story of its birth. These coins connect the everyday world of pocket change with the hidden world of numismatics, where knowledge, patience, and curiosity turn ordinary objects into treasures. Imagine finding one of these rare 1967 quarters in your possession. Perhaps it's been sitting unnoticed in an old box or jar, passed down through generations, its silverish sheen catching the light differently than the others. You pick it up, study the date, and notice something odd. Maybe the letters look doubled, or the edge seems misaligned. You do some research, and suddenly you realize you might be holding a fortune. That's the magic of coin collecting. The intersection of history, mystery, and luck. And in the case of the 1967 Washington quarter, that magic can be worth tens of thousands, even over $145,000, for the right coin. The year 1996 was part of an important era for U.S. coins. It marked the 25th anniversary of the copper-nickel-clad quarter, which had replaced the 90% silver composition decades earlier. Millions upon millions of quarters were minted that year, so many that most people wouldn't think twice about one. Yet, among those endless rolls and bags of quarters, a few were born different. Something in the process went slightly off, a faint misalignment, a double strike, or an unintentional mix of metals. These seemingly tiny flaws turned a common coin into one of the most sought-after treasures in modern numismatics. The Washington quarter itself carries a long and proud history. First introduced in 1932 to honor the 200th birthday of George Washington, the coin became an American icon. The design by John Flanagan shows Washington's profile with the word Liberty above and In God We Trust to the left, while the reverse features a proud eagle perched with outstretched wings. Over time, it evolved, but in 1996, the design still reflected the classic version, a symbol of tradition and strength. What makes the 1996 era coin so fascinating is that the error occurred in a time of advanced minting technology, when mistakes like these were thought to be nearly impossible. Inside the U.S. Mint's complex production process, every coin goes through multiple steps. A blank metal disc, called a planchet, is fed into a press, where a pair of dies strike it with immense pressure, imprinting the design. These machines are precise, producing thousands of coins per minute. But every so often, something extraordinary happens. A slight misalignment between the dies, a crack in the metal, or an improper feeding of the blank can create a visual anomaly. And that's where the 1996 quarter error stories begin. Some of the most famous examples from this year include double die obverse errors, where Washington's face, lettering, or numbers appear slightly doubled under magnification. The words In God We Trust, or the date 1996, can show a shadow-like duplication, a phenomenon that collectors love because it's clear, undeniable evidence of a minting anomaly. Another known variation is the off-center strike, where the design is shifted away from the center, leaving part of the coin blank. The more off-center the strike, without losing critical details like the date, the more valuable the coin becomes. And then there are rare instances of coins struck on the wrong planchet, such as when a quarter design was accidentally struck on a 5-cent or dime planchet, creating a coin with the wrong weight and size. These are the unicorns of the coin world, and their discovery always sparks excitement. Imagine someone rummaging through old change, unaware that among hundreds of ordinary coins lies one of these rare 1996 errors. Maybe it's been sitting in a jar for years, passed through countless hands. A young cashier in the late 90s might have given it as change, never knowing its hidden worth. Fast forward to today, when coin collectors with keen eyes and magnifying tools search tirelessly for such treasures. When one surfaces, it's like striking gold. In recent years, a few 1996 error quarters have been sold at auction for jaw-dropping prices. Depending on the type of error and the coin's condition, the value has ranged anywhere from several $1,000s to staggering sums. The highest recorded sales have reached between $45,000 and $110,000 for well-preserved examples with rare errors such as double dies and planchet anomalies. The key factors that influence price are clarity of the error, rarity, and grade. A coin graded MS67 or MS68, mint state, with a sharp, obvious error is the kind that collectors dream of finding. But what makes this even more captivating is that these coins often go unnoticed by the average person. They're small, humble pieces of history that blend in with everyday currency. You might find one tucked away in a collection of spare change from the 90s, or mixed among quarters used for parking meters or vending machines. And that's the beauty of numismatics. It's not just about collecting old coins. It's about the thrill of discovery, the story behind each minting imperfection, and the knowledge that you could stumble upon something truly extraordinary in the most ordinary places. There's something poetic about how these rare coins come into existence. Think about it. A small misalignment in a massive minting machine, a second's delay in striking, a worn-out die that was never replaced in time, and suddenly a 25-cent coin becomes a historical artifact worth tens of thousands. It reminds us that even in the world of precision and control, imperfection can create beauty and immense value. Collectors often talk about the emotional connection they feel when finding such coins. It's not just about profit. It's the sense of uncovering a forgotten piece of American history. The 1996 quarter sits right on the edge of a new millennium, symbolizing the shift from traditional coinage to the digital age. To own one of these error coins is like holding a relic from the last great chapter of analog currency, a time before the world became fully digitized. For those who are curious about checking their own coins, here's what to look for. Take a close look at the obverse, the front side with Washington's profile. Use a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe to inspect the date, 1996, and the words, "In God We Trust." If you see doubling or distortion, you might have a double die error. Check the edges of the coin, too. Are they perfectly circular, or is part of the design missing? Off-center strikes will often show an uneven rim. Flip the coin to the reverse side and examine the eagle's feathers and the lettering around the edge. Sometimes the doubling is more prominent there. And of course, if your quarter seems unusually light or heavy, it could have been struck on the wrong planchet, which makes it extremely rare. The stories behind these coins often begin with curiosity. Someone decides to go through an old coin jar, maybe out of boredom, and ends up uncovering something incredible. Others inherit coin collections from parents or grandparents and later discover that among the common pieces lies a rare gem. In some cases, collectors buy rolls of quarters from banks or the US Mint itself, hoping to find that one coin with a unique story to tell. And when they do, it's like holding lightning in a bottle, a moment that connects them to history, craftsmanship, and chance. Auction houses have seen growing interest in 1996 era quarters as more collectors realize their scarcity. As prices climb and examples become harder to find, even lightly circulated coins with visible errors can fetch thousands. The most pristine examples, those that have survived decades without scratches or wear, are the ones that bring record-breaking prices. It's not just about owning a coin. It's about preserving a fragment of American minting history. What's fascinating is how these coins reveal the human side of minting. Despite all the machines and automation, it's still a process guided by people, inspectors, engineers, and workers who ensure precision. And yet, no matter how perfect the system, small flaws find their way through. Those flaws are what make these coins special. They're accidents that became legends, mistakes that tell stories of craftsmanship, evolution, and human ingenuity. So the next time you come across a quarter from 1996, don't just glance at it and toss it aside. Take a moment to really look. Hold it up to the light, feel its texture, and inspect every detail. You might just notice something that others missed. A slight doubling, a shifted design, an odd sheen. And if you're lucky enough to find a genuine error, You could be holding a coin worth between $45,000 and $110,000, a rare piece of American history hiding in plain sight. Coins like the 1996 Washington quarter remind us that value isn't always obvious. Sometimes, it takes a closer look, a bit of curiosity, and a sense of wonder to uncover the extraordinary. These tiny metal discs carry stories of mistakes that turned into masterpieces, ordinary moments that became treasures. And somewhere out there, another one is still waiting to be found, quietly resting in a pocket, a drawer, or an old jar, waiting for the day someone finally realizes what it truly is.